Everyone in Accra knew the name Obadele Okoro, the billionaire who built an empire from oil and tech. At 38, he had everything money could buy, except the one thing his heart secretly longed for: a child. He stood by the window of his 20-story mansion, staring into the dark Ghanaian sky. His phone buzzed with contracts, his house buzzed with staff, but his soul, empty. Obadele had tried marriage, twice, and both times, love betrayed him. Feelings, he scoffed. Feelings get in the way of business. So he made a decision. If love couldn't give him a child, then money would. Not a relationship, not a wife, just an agreement. Someone to carry his heir, no emotions, no strings, a transaction. Just like any other deal. What he didn't know was that this deal would lead to something no amount of wealth could prepare him for. It was just another hot afternoon in Kumasi, and traffic near Kejetia Market was crawling. Street hawkers weaved through moving cars, shouting deals and tapping on windows. Obadele Okoro sat behind the tinted glass of his black SUV, barely glancing at the chaos outside. But then, something caught his eye. There, on the cracked sidewalk beside a faded wall, sat a young woman. She was barefoot, her dress was torn, and yet she wasn't begging. She was drawing. With a stick of charcoal and a piece of crumpled paper on her lap, she sketched in silence. Eyes focused, hands steady. Her hair was in thick, uncombed coils, her skin dulled by dust and hunger. But her eyes, they burned with defiance. Obadele frowned. Who draws on the street like they've got all the time in the world? The traffic light turned green. He should have driven on, but something pulled at him, something unfamiliar. He made a sharp U-turn. 2 minutes later, his car rolled up beside her. "Hey," he called out through the window. His voice was cold, commanding. "Get in, I want to talk to you." The woman looked up slowly, her eyes narrowed. "I don't do those kinds of talks," she snapped. Obadele's jaw tightened. "Don't insult me. I'm not here for foolishness. I have a proposal." "A proposal?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "To a stranger on the street?" "You don't look like someone with better offers," he said flatly. "Now get in, or stay here with your charcoal and dreams." Her pride flared, but so did her curiosity. With hesitation, she stood, dusted her skirt, and opened the car door. "I have a name," she muttered as she slid into the leather seat. "It's Nia Masego." Obadele didn't look at her. He simply started the engine and replied, "Good. You'll need it where we're going." As the SUV pulled away from the noisy market into quieter streets, two lives, one powerful, one broken, began to twist together. Neither of them knew that this ride would rewrite everything they believed about power, pain, and purpose. The SUV came to a stop outside a quiet café in the hills of Ahodwo. The noise of the market was far behind them now. Wind brushed the leaves of the mango trees and birds chirped, unaware of the strange proposal about to unfold. Obadele stepped out first, sharp in a dark green caftan. He didn't hold the door open. He didn't offer a smile. He didn't need to. Nia followed him with caution, arms crossed, eyes scanning every corner like it was a trap. They sat in the farthest corner, away from the few customers. A waiter brought drinks. Neither of them touched theirs. Obadele leaned in, voice low and surgical. "I want you to carry my child." Nia blinked. She let out a short, awkward laugh. "Excuse me." "You heard me," he said, folding his hands. "No strings, no emotion, just a contract. I cover all your expenses. You give birth, you leave rich." Nia stared at him, disbelief melting into disgust. "You think because I'm poor, I'll rent out my womb like a spare room?" she snapped. "This isn't charity, Nia," Obadele replied calmly. "This is business. You have something I need. I have something you need. Food, shelter, a future." She stood up, fury in her trembling voice. "You're unbelievable." "You're starving," he said, eyes locked on hers. "And this offer might be the only chance you'll ever get to change that." Nia's fists clenched. She wanted to throw the glass of untouched water in his face. She wanted to scream. But instead, She sat back down. Silence. Then she whispered, "Why me?" "Because you're invisible. No family, no history, no noise, just a vessel." Those words stung, but they were also true. Nia pushed back her chair and stood again. "I may be hungry, but I'm not for sale." She turned and walked away, her shadow long in the golden light of late afternoon. But as she crossed the street and disappeared into the dusty alleys, Obadele didn't stop her. He didn't need to, because deep down he saw something shift in her eyes. And Nia? She didn't walk away with anger. She walked away with a storm of questions and the seed of a dangerous temptation. That night, Nia lay curled beneath a ragged blanket on the cold steps behind a closed shop. The wind cut through her bones. Her stomach ached with emptiness. Somewhere in the distance, a baby cried. Somewhere closer, rats scurried through the trash. She closed her eyes, but all she could see was his face, Obadele Okoro, and that offer. A child, money, freedom. She hated him for suggesting it, but more than that, she hated herself for considering it. The next morning, her pride was buried beneath the weight of reality. She walked for hours until she stood in front of tall black gates in East Legon. Gates guarded, polished, and intimidating. "I'm here to see Mr. Okoro," she said, chin lifted. Minutes later, Obadele opened the front door himself. He didn't smile. He didn't ask why she came. Nia looked him dead in the eye. "I'll do it," she said, "but I want it in writing, no tricks." Obadele nodded once. Of course. Inside, a thick envelope lay on the glass table, the contract already drawn. He handed her a pen. His expression? Blank. But her hand trembled as she signed. Nia Masego. Just like that, her life was no longer hers. That evening, a private car delivered her to the mansion gates. As she stepped into her new room, clean sheets, soft lights, silence, she stood frozen. She was no longer invisible, but she wasn't free either. She was purchased. And somewhere deep in her chest, her heart whispered, "You've made your choice. Now survive it." The room smelled of lavender and polished wood. Silk curtains danced in the breeze. The mattress felt like clouds. A personal chef prepared her meals. A nurse checked her vitals. A driver waited at the gate just in case. Nia Masego had everything now. Everything except freedom. Days passed, quiet and precise, like clockwork in a golden cage. She didn't need to ask for anything. It was all delivered before she spoke. And yet no one truly spoke to her, not about her, not with care, not with warmth. It was as if she'd been bought, and everyone knew it, even Obadele. He barely appeared. When he did, it was only to check progress. "Are the doctors satisfied?" he'd ask, never, "How are you feeling?" To him, she was an investment, a means to an end. Nia sat in her private living room one night, untouched food on the tray beside her. She looked around the luxury and whispered, "Why does it still feel like I'm starving?" No answer came. She missed the sound of laughter, of voices, of her. She missed herself. Sometimes she'd walk barefoot through the marbled halls, hoping to feel something. Anything. But the silence was heavier than poverty. Worse, it was lonelier. She stood at the giant glass window one evening, staring at the city lights below. "I escaped the streets," she murmured, "but I stepped into a palace of ghosts." And Obadele? He watched from his study upstairs. He saw her, quiet, still, shrinking by the day, but he said nothing. After all, emotions weren't part of the contract, only delivery. It started with footsteps. Nia was seated on a bench in the garden, sketching silently under the almond tree, when she heard him. Obadele Okoro, always a shadow, always distant, stepped into the sunlight. She looked up, expecting his usual cold check-in, but instead, he handed her something. A brand new leather-bound sketchbook and a full set of graphite pencils. "I noticed your drawings were fading," he said. "Thought you might want better tools." Nia blinked. She hadn't told anyone, hadn't even drawn in days. Why? She asked quietly, suspicious. Obadele shrugged. Idle minds grow restless. She accepted the gift, but not without a stare. You think a sketchbook can fix this prison? No, he said simply, but it's a distraction. They sat in silence. For the first time, the silence didn't choke her. Later that week, he joined her again and again, always brief, always guarded, but consistent. She began to notice little things, the way he folded his hands when uncertain, the soft sigh he gave before speaking, the hesitation in his voice when he asked, "Are you managing?" And one evening, Nia finally snapped. "Why do you even bother coming here?" she said, not looking up. "You treat me like a contract, but you sit here like a friend. Make up your mind." Obadele didn't move. His eyes studied her, then the growing belly that housed his heir. "You're not just a contract," he said. "You're the carrier of everything I've built." She scoffed. "So I'm a vault now? A human briefcase?" He looked away. Nia leaned closer, voice softer now. "You hide behind control, Obadele, but I see it. You're scared. Of people. Of pain. Of feeling." He didn't answer. But that night she found a soft wool blanket folded neatly on her bed. No note, no explanation, just something warm. And for the first time since signing the contract, she slept through the night. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and quiet tension. Nia lay on the cushioned bed, her blouse lifted slightly, cool gel smeared across her belly. The doctor adjusted the ultrasound probe while soft beeps echoed from the machine. And next to her, for the first time, Obadele Okoro sat still, silent, and strangely alert. He hadn't planned to come. He never did. But that morning he told Stephanie, "Reschedule everything. I'm going." The screen flickered with black and white fuzz. "All right," the doctor said cheerfully. "Let's take a look at your little one." Then came the sound. Thump, 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 thump. A steady, powerful heartbeat. Nia gasped softly. Even Obadele's eyes twitched, ever so slightly. "There it is," the doctor smiled, "strong and healthy." Nia turned her head, watching Obadele instead of the screen. But then, another beat, another rhythm. Wait, just a second," the doctor said, adjusting the probe. Thump, 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 thump. Two distinct heartbeats. His voice brightened. "Well now, looks like there's a surprise." He turned to them, beaming. "Congratulations, you're having twins." Nia's mouth dropped open. "Twins?" She instinctively reached for her belly. Obadele didn't speak, didn't blink, didn't move. He stared at the screen like he was seeing life for the first time. For once, this wasn't business. This wasn't control. This was real. Two lives, two futures, two heartbeats beating in sync with a destiny he couldn't script. And for the first time since this all began, Obadele felt something break inside him. Not fear, not regret. Just a sudden, terrifying flood of wonder. Everything changed after the ultrasound. Obadele started showing up more. Not with schedules or updates, but with presence. One morning, Nia found him in the kitchen, in a plain shirt, no staff in sight, awkwardly brewing tea. He handed her a cup. "I don't know if it's good," he muttered. She blinked. "You made this." He nodded. "Tried." That evening, they had dinner at the long oak table, the first time without silence or staff, just them. He asked questions. "Where are you from? How did you end up on that street corner?" And for the first time, he listened. Nia spoke of her mother, her dreams of art school, the fire that took everything. Obadele didn't interrupt. He just sat, leaning forward, eyes fixed on her, as if learning her story stitched something back together inside him. And then, he smiled. A real, quiet smile. Nia stared. That smile didn't belong to the tycoon she'd met weeks ago. It belonged to a man who was slowly unlearning how to be alone. She looked away, heart beating strangely, and somewhere deep inside, the girl who once drew pictures on the sidewalk whispered, "Maybe he's not just the contract anymore." The pain struck like thunder. One sharp breath, and Nia doubled over in the hallway. "Stephanie!" she screamed, clutching her belly. Within minutes, Obadele was at her side. His calm shattered. "She's in labor," Stephanie said breathlessly. "I'm going with her," he snapped, already helping Nia into the car. "No, sir, the doctors—" "I said I'm going." The hospital was a blur. Bright lights, fast-moving nurses, monitors beeping like drums of war. Nia's hand gripped his so tight, her nails drew blood. Don't let go," she whispered. "I won't," he said. Voice low, raw, real. Hours passed, and then a cry, sharp, pure. "A boy!" the nurse said, holding up a tiny, wriggling child. Obadele's breath caught. He reached out but couldn't speak. Then another cry, louder, stronger. "A girl!" Twins. Just like the screen had promised. Nia sobbed, exhausted, broken, yet alive with joy. Let me hold them." One in each arm. Her son, her daughter, so small, so warm. Obadele stepped closer, staring at them as if time had stopped. And then, without thinking, he reached out and lifted the baby girl into his arms. She blinked at him, and he shattered. Every wall, every calculation, every deal, gone. He turned to Nia, voice cracking. "They're perfect." Tears welled in her eyes. And in that room, no contracts, no wealth, no power, just two people, and two little lives they never expected to change them so deeply. The babies slept peacefully, unaware their mother was leaving. Nia stood at the edge of the nursery, one hand on the crib, the other holding a small, worn-out suitcase. The contract was clear. Once the children were born, she would walk away. No rights, no questions, no return. Stephanie waited near the door, her eyes glossy. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "I signed," Nia replied, forcing a smile. "I gave my word." Downstairs, the mansion was silent. No cries, no laughter, just a storm swelling in her chest. She took one last breath and stepped toward the front door. And there he was. Obadele, standing in the doorway, holding a single sheet of paper, the contract. His jaw clenched, his eyes glistened. And before she could speak, he tore the paper in half. Then in half again, and again, until it fell like confetti at her feet. "I don't want you to go," he said, voice low. "I don't want to lose you." Nia froze. "I didn't plan for this," he whispered, "but I can't ignore it anymore." Tears welled in her eyes, because deep down, she didn't want to go either. Nia dropped the suitcase. "I can't do this," she said, tears spilling. "I can't walk out like none of this mattered." Obadele stepped forward slowly. "Then don't." She wiped her face, trembling. I fell for you, Obadele. Somewhere between the silence and the garden, between the sketchbook and the tea. I started hoping, and that scares me more than anything." He reached out, gently holding her hands. "You think I'm not scared? I built walls so high I couldn't see over them. But you climbed them, without even trying." Her breath hitched. "But what if you change your mind? What if one day you disappear? I've been abandoned before, forgotten." "I won't," he said firmly. "I can't promise perfection, but I promise effort, every day. Because I don't just want our children, I want you." Nia looked into his eyes and finally saw it. No contracts, no coldness, just a man, stripped bare, asking to be chosen. And she whispered, "Then let's build something real." The sun poured gently over the garden that once knew only silence. Now it held music, laughter, petals floating in the breeze, and the soft cries of two little miracles wrapped in white. Under a mango tree draped in cloth and flowers, Obadele Okoro stood in a cream-colored agbada, his hands steady, but his heart racing. Beside him, Nia Masego, radiant in a flowing gold and ivory dress, held their baby boy while Stephanie stood proudly with their daughter. It wasn't a wedding filled with guests or grandeur, just a small circle of those who mattered. Love didn't need an audience. The twins babbled as if trying to speak their blessings into the wind. One of them, the boy, let out a sudden sound. "Baba!" Obadele froze. Nia gasped, turning to him. Then the girl joined in, squealing, "Mama!" Laughter and tears mixed as Obadele leaned in and kissed Nia, not with urgency, but with peace. A kiss that said, "We survived." That said, "We chose this." That said, "We are family now." No lawyers, no contracts, just hearts that had been tested and remained. Which moment in the story made you emotional, my besties? Comment below and subscribe to the channel.